and welcome to this month's edition of 9.Connect's webinar. My name is Eric Gross, and I'm going to be presenting Altium Designer navigation tools. So hopefully that's what you're here for, and we're going to get started right away. One of the things, this is going to take quite a bit of time. I've tried to rush everything into 1 hour. I think I've got it down to 1 hour, but I may be rushing near the end, so if I get a little quick on it. What I wanted to do is remind everybody that these webinars are always recorded and on our website, and you can always go back and take a look at them. You can even speed them up or slow them down, I believe. I know you can speed them up. I'm not sure if you can slow them down, but you can certainly pause them and things like that, so it's very easy to do that. You can go ahead and type your questions into the questions panel. There are other people online that can possibly or probably answer your questions, so feel free to do that anytime you want. So navigating Altium Designer, if you're new to Altium Designer, it should be very helpful for you. If you're a seasoned veteran, maybe not so much, but we are going to use Altium 20, in fact 20.2, which actually has some improvements from 20.1, believe it or not. And if you haven't used that yet, maybe you'll pick up something there as well. So we're going to talk about navigating the projects panel. It's going to be a really small area that we're going to talk about, but then we'll talk about toolbars, shortcuts, and hotkeys, some of the menu items for navigation. Cross probe and cross select is going to be a very important part of this. And then we're going to look at some specific panels that are very good for navigation as well. And then I'll have some other little tips for you too. So I've got a polling question here. It's going to be really interesting to me because this changes a lot. This changes quite often. As far as how many, it's going to be interesting to see who does all schematic design, who does all PCB design, who does mostly one or the other. It seems to change over time. There was a time when people would only do schematics or only do PCBs. It'll be really interesting to see how this plays out. So if you could answer that, I'd appreciate it. Okay, great. Yeah, this is exactly how I envisioned it now. It wasn't always like that. So this is very good to know. And it looks like both the schematic and PCB designers is the majority, which that is really a change from what it used to be. And so I'm glad to hear that because I definitely like to do both myself as well. So let's go ahead and get into Altium, and let's start up here. And I'm going to start up in the projects panel. So there's a few things we can do in the projects panel for navigation. Some of it has to do with looking at files and things like that, and some of it has to do with navigating in the design. One of the things I wanted to bring up, and I bring this up a lot in the preferences. If you have not gone through all of your preferences, and the reason I'm going to go through this is under preferences, I have projects panel, and this is going to set up this projects panel. But as a sidebar to navigation, and I mention this all the time in my training classes that I do for 9.Connect, is going through all of your system level settings is very, very important. It's something I worked with Altium for years and years, never really looked through here, and there's all kinds of things you can set up that may really help you in your job. So I definitely I recommend going through each one of these. And what I wanted to show you, we're going to look at this full path information in Hint and this components grouping. That's the only thing we're going to look at in here. But I wanted to remind everybody, if you don't know this already, anytime you're in an Altium dialog, and a dialog meaning that you have to get out of it to get into the editor, anytime you have that and you have a question about what one of these is used for, you can always hit the F1 key, which I just did. And that F1 key will always bring you to the actual dialog informational set, this is the one we're in just now. And it gives you all the answers to all the things you might want to know about that. So it's very helpful, and I want to make sure everybody knows that that is available to you. So just hitting the F1 key while in a dialog will bring you there. So I'm going to use this full path information hint. And so if you ever need to know, if you have that on and you ever need to know where the path is here, you can always, you can hover over this and see where the path is with that link there. Now, personally, I don't like having that there because it's just sometimes these links can be so long and go away across your page. So technically, usually I actually turn this off, but it's totally up to you in your setups. So I turn that off. Well, if I turn that off, I no longer get that, but there's actually a better tool to do that. For instance, this block diagram, I added this block diagram to this project. Now it's a document. You don't have to have just Altium documents in a project. You can have any kind of document. This happens to be a Word document. But if you notice here, there's this little arrow here, and that little arrow means, it's a very important arrow, really. It's telling me that this document is not in the same folder or under this in the same folder or directory as the project file itself. It's not under it, it's not near it, it's a link to it. So you may want to say, you may know where all this is coming from, but you may not know where this is coming from. So a really nice tool is just to right click on it, hit explore, and it'll go right to the explore, and actually you can see where the path is here, and you can actually get to the document here. So that's a great way to navigate to a file if you need to. If you notice, in Altium 20 now, we don't compile the design, we validate the design. It's basically the same shortcut CC, but I'm going to validate this design real quick. And when I do that, you can see that we get these components and nets that come up here. Okay. Now, if you want to navigate to certain components, I can navigate to say C6, and it comes up here, or C3 comes up here. And anytime you navigate to something, I want you to realize that you can come up to here to the navigation page. This is system navigation, and you can set this up for close and far versus invisible versus none as far as dimming goes. You can have the connected graph. You're selecting here, so I'm actually selecting the component. I'm zooming to it, so you can set this up. And I'll come back to this a few times because sometimes I like to zoom right in, sometimes I don't. So if I come back here and start clicking on this, now you can see I'm zoomed out quite a bit here. Okay. So don't forget that you can do that. The other nice thing about this is I can right click on here and I can cross probe to the PCB. I actually didn't have the PCB open yet, so it's taken like a couple seconds, but normally it would come up instantly. I should have had that open, sorry about that. But it basically cross probed right to there. So let's do that again. Let's cross probe to the PCB, and you can see it goes right there. What's even nicer is I can come down here to the nets, and I can, let's say, grab a HA10, cross probe to the PCB, and there it is. Okay, and again, I can use the dimming, I can use all the setups in the navigation panel like that, and so I can easily cross probe to the PCB. Okay, so that's, there's other ways of doing that in Altium. Personally, I probably don't use this very often, but I may actually, after looking at this a little bit more, this is kind of a nice way of doing it if you know what the net name is and if you know what the component is. Let's get out of the project panel and let's talk about a couple other things. Now, the shortcuts are very important, just like in any other program. Shortcuts are very important. For instance, if I want to place, let's say, place a wire, I can come up here and use the shortcut PW. There's a shortcut Control W that Altium gives you. There's all kinds of ways of placing wires, like that kind of thing. But if you do something all the time, very often, and especially during navigation, if I'm going to look for things, I want to be able to set things up. So setting up your toolbar is really nice in there. You can set up different toolbars here, but you can also customize your toolbar. And what Altium does something a little bit different than it normally does when you have a dialog open. Normally, when you have a dialog open here, there is nothing else you can do in Altium. Right? Once you come over here, there's just it'll ding at you every time you come out. But when you're in this customized schematic editor toolbars, you can actually start editing your toolbars over here. One example would be, for instance, if I want to place drawing tools. If you do a lot of place drawing tools, you can come down here, and there's a second menu down here. Paul just showed me this yesterday, and it's really nice. When you do drawing tools, you got to come all the way down to place, all the way down to here, all the way down. It's kind of a pain. So I can actually, in this mode, and you have to be in this mode, I can actually grab drawing tools, bring it out of that menu, and then hit the control key. This is important. You got to hit the control key once it's out, and then I can place it up here. And that's if you want to do a copy of it. So what I did is I just brought drawing tools up here, and now it's really nice. I can just go straight to drawing tools. So I could set up all kinds of ones in here right here. And because I hit the control key, I still have drawing tools down here. If I didn't hit the control key, this would have been gone. Okay. And again, you have to do it once you're out. So there's other things when you customize here. You can actually customize quite a few shortcuts if you want. Actually, this is a good way to list all the find all the shortcuts. For instance, for a line, you can see where all the shortcuts are here. You can go through here. You can see what the shortcut is, and then you can see what alternate shortcuts are. So you can actually set up alternate shortcuts if you want to. Let me find a good one. For instance, drawing tools. If I want to set up a alternate shortcut for a line, I can actually I can pick line, edit, and then I can come over here and actually create a new shortcut, anything I want that's not being used already. I'm going to show you an easier way to do that actually. But again, this is a nice way to find all the shortcuts. Another way you can find all the shortcuts that Altium gives you under the help key, you can go to shortcut keys and it'll go out to a web browser and show you the hundreds or maybe thousands of shortcuts that they provide. But let's say I cross probe a lot in navigation, okay? And I say, you know what, I can come up here and grab this little button, or I can go to tools, cross probe, but what I really want to do is set up my own little shortcut, okay? So set up shortcuts is pretty easy. If you go up to tools, I go down to cross probe, and before I left click it, I am going to hit the control key and now left click it, and it'll actually give me the cross probe setting. I can now set this to say Z, okay? If Z was used by something, it would have currently been used by. And so if it doesn't say that, you're okay, almost. And I'll say almost because Altium, for some reason, if I would have picked S or F or E or V up here, it would not have told me that's currently in use. And I don't know why it doesn't do that. But if you pick one of those, like if I would have picked C for cross probe, I would have maybe lost one of these other ones. Actually, C was okay. But if I would have picked P or something, I would have lost my place. I wouldn't have lost the menu, but I would have lost that shortcut. So I do Z, and now every time I want to cross probe, I can just hit the Z key and I'm ready to go. Okay? So that's a nice way to set up shortcuts. Okay, let's not talk any more about that. That's the menu stuff. It's nice to set these things up, and you might want to do that if you do a lot of navigation. Some of the other things. One of the other things that's really nice for shortcut keys, if you're doing a lot of navigation, if I grab something, anytime I grab something and start an operation like moving this, okay, I can always hit the tilde key, okay, the tilde key or the shift F1 key. And what that does is it pauses my situation. It pauses whatever I'm doing, and it gives me all the very common things that I may want to use for this. For instance, rotate counterclockwise would be the space bar, okay? And the space bar, I can either click on here or I can get out of this by going back into the editor and just remembering the space bar. So if I hit this, I do it once, but then if I hit the space bar, I can do that all the time, okay? So that works out real well, and that works for it works for anything, any kind of operation you're doing. If you hit the space, if you hit the tilde key, again, that's the one above the tab key, and you don't have to hit the shift key, by the way. You just hit the tilde key, it'll always bring up that menu for you in all the editors. So that's very handy as well. Let's look at some of the more simplest stuff, but it's kind of important. Under edit, under edit find text. Okay, this is one of those ones that I've used for years and years. It's just a control F. I always go to it. But if I do something like text define R1, I'm going to find all kinds of things that have R1. If I say okay, it's going to go through here, and I'm going to actually see that there's a lot of stuff that says R1 in here. So you kind of get a bunch of stuff in here, anything that has an R1 in here. So what you can do is, if you can also do Control F and actually create or actually change the scope, and you can actually do this to designators only if you want. So that would only look at designators. You can do case sensitive, things like that. So that's another way to find designators. But really, the best way to find designators is to use the jump command. And jump command is just JC, jump to component. That's the one that works really well. I'll go to U1, it'll automatically go to U1. And in this case, U1 actually has 3 parts. It has multiple parts, this component. So if I say next, it'll go to U1B. If I go to next, it'll go to U1C. But typically, like for instance, if I go back to jump component JC R1, it'll just go right to R1, okay, and bring it right to me. Okay, so that's the best way to go find components. One of the nice things, if you've never used it before, and a lot of you have probably used it, but it's a really nice feature, is find similar objects. Okay, so every editor has it. So if I want to find in my design, let's say I want to find every one of these components in my design, I can click on this, right click, and go find similar objects. Now this thing will give me everything I need to know about this part, everything everything that you could possibly want to know. And what I can do is I can say, look, I want to find everything. I want to find all the parts, and I want to find all parts that have a description of capacitor, and I want all parts that have I wouldn't want to put component designator, but I want all parts that have the same comment. And then I can come down here, I can say current document, project documents. I can hit select matching, which is actually very important. I'll talk about that in a second. I can zoom, clear this, I can set up this, And open properties panel is really nice too. So I say okay, and it opens up the properties panel, and you can see now that I've got components selected, and I've got 29 components selected in 2 documents. So what's nice about that is I can now come in here. Anything that's the same between all these capacitors will be darkened in. Anything that's not the same will have the grayed out symbol here. But I can come in here, and what's nice about the projects panel is I can change the part number to a -X or something like that, hit enter, and now all of these parts have that -X. Okay, so that's a really nice way to find parts. Not only find parts, but if you want to edit parts, it's a really nice way to edit parts. You can imagine if you had hundreds of those decoupling caps and you wanted to change the part number to them, you can do it super simple just by doing find similar objects, find them all, make a change in the properties panel, and you're good to go. The selection filter, very, very important in Altium. Over here, if I come over here, you can see that I have the selection filter. I can also get to it under the document options, but I always come up here. And what's nice about the selection filter, if I want to select 3 of these components, okay, if I want to grab this one, I'm going to grab C34, I'm going to hold down the shift key, C26, and C41, okay? If you notice, I grabbed what's multiple objects. I thought I grabbed 3 components. Altium's telling me, no, you grabbed multiple objects. Well, the problem was I accidentally grabbed the pin right here instead of the part. Okay, if I'm way zoomed out, I may not know that if I don't know the color scheme and all that. So what Altium gives us is this selection filter, which I use all the time. I can set it to components. I can actually set it to multiple things if I want. But I'm going to set it to components, and now there's just no doubt about what I'm picking up. There's nothing, I'm picking up components. I'm just holding the shift key down, and now I've got components. I've got 5 of them selected. Works great. So selection filter, especially in the PCB, this PCB is very handy in that if you're in routing mode, or if you're in placement mode, you might want to put it in components. And over here you've got the selection filter where you can select components, 3D bodies, keep outs, tracks, any of this stuff, and then you don't have to worry about grabbing the wrong thing all the time. Another way of selecting things that's very handy, if you go up here to preferences again, and I go to general, there's this weird thing called use left right selection. And I don't know how long I used Altium and didn't know this was there. And I'm talking from a lot of experience here, so hopefully you'll understand that if I say something really obvious, it's probably because I didn't know it after working for a couple of years with Altium. But left right selection is really nice. If I want to select something in here and I want to use my mouse, I can start from the upper left and go to the lower right, and I have to enclose the entire part in there. So in other words, if I do this, it didn't work because I didn't grab the entire pin. So if I go like this, I'm not actually grabbing the part until I go like that. Whereas when I use left right selection, I can actually, if I start at the lower right and go to the upper left, all I have to do is touch the part, okay? So I use that all the time when I grab things. Since I only have components, I can grab all these all at the same time. I can hit the shift key, grab all these at the same time. I don't have to worry about, completely looking at the part, completely covering the part. I can just even come in here and just barely touch it, and I get this part. So that's the left-right selection feature, and it works quite well. There's also other ways to select things. You can come down here to edit, select. You can see there's a couple things. Lasso. Lasso's kind of interesting. It's almost it's more fun than useful, I guess. If you want to do lasso, you can do, in fact, I think lasso, I should have looked at that earlier. I thought it was up there. But if I go edit, select lasso, I can actually just start lassoing things like this. I can grab that one, this one, come over here, and then I can click on it, and it's only going to grab the things that I lassoed. Unfortunately, you have to grab the entire thing, but you can see how I can kind of lasso a couple of things there. So that's kind of interesting. Some of the other selects here, inside area, that would basically be the same thing as drawing the upper left to lower right box. This would be touching rectangle would be the lower right to upper left. But you can see outside area, inside, all these different ones. And then of course there's deselect for each one of these too. That's sometimes good if you selected a lot of stuff and you accidentally select the wrong thing, you can now deselect something as well without deselecting them all. Okay. Under view commands, there's not a lot here that we can talk about. There's, you've got fit, sometimes fit document, which is VD, and fit, fit, uh, fit all objects. VF is kind of nice. If I'm way down here, I can say, VF and bring up just the document or just the stuff in there. If I do VD, I actually bring up the entire document. Sometimes this can be more useful in the PCB, because I've had this before where the PCB is gone. I can't find it. It's way down in my lower left-hand corner, and I can't find it. So I can just say VF, and it brings it right into me. So anytime you've lost your PCB, or if you're doing something like building components or something, just hit the VF or the VD, and you can actually bring it right back to you. So that can be very helpful sometimes. What else? I think there was something else I was going to mention. Oh, the zoom in and zoom out using page up and page down. So for me, and this again, for those of you that have used Altium a lot, or even at all, this is very obvious to you, but some people might not have used it very often. But to move around, I'm just going to use my right mouse click to actually drag everything around. And to zoom, I'm going to use my control mouse wheel. So I'm rolling it forward, rolling it back. I rarely use it because I'm just going to use my hand, but shift, left, and right, I'm just rolling it forward and back. Okay, and the way you set that up in preferences again is your mouse wheel configurations. So you can set up your mouse wheel configuration. This is basically the default that Altium gives you. So you can see that zoom main window is this control mouse wheel here. Okay, I've got horizontal scroll as shift mouse wheel. I could change these up if I wanted to. A lot of people, vertical scroll, you don't have to do anything. You just mouse wheel it up and down. So that's really the way you're doing it. The one time that zoom comes in nice, the page up and page down works pretty good. If you go up to here, see this zoom in, zoom out is page up and page down, is if you're in an operation and you, let's say you grab something here, you grab that out, and I could actually, if I wanted to, it's kind of awkward, but I could hit the control key and use another finger to roll my mouse button if I wanted to. So I'm actually using my middle finger to do that. Or I can just go up and hit the page up, page down, and then I can see better as I'm zooming in. So that's kind of helpful sometimes. Anyway, you can go through those menus and look at that. Let's talk about port cross references, which Altium's actually made an improvement in Altium 20 that seems like it should have been there forever, but that's okay. Under reports, under port sorry, I'm having a hard time with that. Port cross reference, I can add that to the project, okay? And what it's done is it's added my cross references here. And if I want to change the format to that, I can go up to my preferences again. And again, this is why knowing all your preferences or knowing where to find them is really nice to be able to do. Under schematic, general, I can go to port cross references, and I can do, right now it's the number and the zone. Okay, I can just I can say none, or even XY location, say okay. And now with the improvement they've made, it used to be you had to go in here and remove all from project and then add all again from project. And they finally came up here and said update on project, which that seems like it would be a small thing to add to Altium, but it's very useful now. And I can just update it, and now it updates it automatically. Now I normally wouldn't want the zones. I'd actually rather have the zone in here. So you can see how quick it is to simply go up here, port cross references, update on project. Okay. The other thing, and this is just a bonus because it's not part of navigation really, the other thing that they changed in Altium 20.2, in fact, if you have 20.1, you won't see this. 20.2, you can now right click over here and rename a file. Okay, it used to be you had to save as, and then it would create a copy, and then you'd have to go into Explore and remove the copy. Now you can rename. So if I can actually come up here, rename it, and you don't have to do all that. Again, that seems like something that should have been done a long time ago, but I'm glad they did it now. So there has been a lot of improvements. In fact, if you haven't gone to Altium 20 yet, and again, this has nothing to do with navigation, Altium 20 has made some great progress with their a few things. With their match length editor is fantastic. It's really working real well. Some of the stuff with the polygons and things like that, much better. And so if you haven't gone to Altium 20 yet, it's probably worth that if you do a lot of that kind of stuff. Okay. So next thing I want to talk about is under System Design Insight. This is something you might want to look at later, look at all these things, what it does. What I'm going to do is I'm going to enable Connectivity Insight. And by the way, if you enable this and it doesn't work, it's probably because something isn't checked down here. I found that earlier. I had to check that. But I'm going to enable Connectivity Insight. And what that does for me is when I hover over something now, for instance, the done pin or the done net, what it's going to do is going to bring up basically everywhere that pin goes, everywhere that net goes, okay, in the design. Okay, and I can easily go to it by just clicking on here, and now I've gone over to the done here. Okay, and again, just like anything, I can always go to navigation, and this is probably when I like it to be a little less invisible, the background, and I might want to get a little bit closer. So I come over here, and now let's do that again. Let's go to config. Let's go to the done pin, hover over it, come off of it, look at it here, go back over to here, and now you can see it a little bit better. For some reason, I see it a little bit better when this is a little less faded out. So you can see where it is, okay? And you can do that for anything here. Now, if you don't need to do that, I turn that off because that can be annoying. If you just rest your mouse button somewhere, it's going to start showing that thing all the time. So the nice thing about preferences now, it's so easy to get into. I can go in there, go back to design info site, turn it off, and or I could have had my mouse hover display to be a little bit longer, and that would have worked out okay too. But I'm going to turn it off for now because that kind of leaves me to the Navigator panel. So I'm going to bring up the Navigator panel. It sort of does the same thing. I'm going to go ahead and compile this design, hit CC to compile just real quick to make sure everything's up to date. And now I can come down here and I can bring up each one of my sheets here. And as I bring up each one of the sheets, I can double click on one of these components, and it'll show me that it can show me all kinds of things, the parameters, implementation, the pins, all this stuff. Shows me where it is, shows me this little connectivity line. And again, the connectivity line comes from your preferences under navigation. If you don't like the connectivity graph, you can turn it off, okay? But it's kind of nice to have that. So you can go to each one of these. Now, the real nice thing about the Navigator panel is this. Let's say let's go over to this sheet here and bring up the Navigator panel. And what I want to do here is, let's say I want to know where HA17 goes. I can go to interactive navigation, touch that, and what it's going to do is it's going to show me exactly where it goes on this page, which actually is already a nice thing. I don't have to go search for it. But what it also does is it comes down here and it shows me everywhere in the design it's going. Some of this is going to be redundant, okay, because it wants to show me, net labels, pins, ports, and sheet entries. But I can go through here and basically see every place that thing is going to. Okay, like I said, some of it's redundant because it's doing different things. But I can go through and find out everywhere that it's actually going to in this design. So that's a really nice feature that you'll probably want to use. If you have a big design, you want to know where something goes. You can use your port cross references if you have ports, but if you don't have that, you can definitely use this. And again, you just use, if I go back to that sheet, and if I go to Navigator, interactive navigation, I can come up here. I could have found it, I could have come here and found the net down here and done the same thing, but this interactive navigation works pretty well. Okay, let's go on. I know I'm going fast, and like I said, if you're very experienced in this, it's probably a lot of it's redundant. Hopefully you're picking something up, but if you're new to Altium, this is going to go way too fast for you, but feel free, and I think in 1 or 2 days, we'll have this thing up on our website, just like we have all of our webinars, and you can look at it again. Because the next thing I want to talk about is cross-select mode, which is one of the real nice features about here. And I'm going to try and do this by split vertical. It's going to be a little small for everybody, I think, but I'm going to do it. And I'm sure we'll be able to figure it out, or it'll work fine. But I can go to, let me get rid of that for a second, the properties panel. But what I can do, what's really nice about Altium being an integrated design environment is I can have multiple editors up at the same time. I can be moving around in them. And the cross-select mode is one of the nicer parts of that. If you go up to tools, you can see that cross-select mode is right here. And you have to come off of it to make sure it's on. You see the little box right there where the box is, it shows that it's turned on. So once I do that, all I have to do is select something. Again, selecting means something in Altium. I can select this and it will cross probe over to here. Now, if I go back up to preferences, under navigation again, this is cross select mode settings. So cross selection, I can do dimming. I don't have to do dimming and I don't have to do zooming if I don't want to. And this will, once you turn this on, you can then use these bars to manipulate that. And I can cross select components, nets, or pins, or not, just one of them or whatever, okay? So that means I can actually cross select to nets. So if I select this over here, I have to turn on my selection filter to do nets. I'll just turn them all on. If I select over here, you can see that the selection's here. In fact, let's go to do something a little more exciting. If I say, where is HA18 going? Well, there it is, okay? HA4, there it is, okay? And I can hold down my shift key, hold down my shift key, make multiple selections. In fact, I can grab a bunch of things like this and make selections. In fact, this is another very nice tool that you might want to check out, or a feature. So let's go back to here and let's talk about these decoupling caps, okay? So I'm going to go back here. I'm going to go to components, and I might be somebody that wants to evaluate, or I want to review this design, and I want to see where all these decoupling caps are. I want to make sure they're underneath U1 where they should be. So I'm going to grab all those decoupling caps, and you can see that they've all lit up here, okay? If let's just pretend right now that somebody put, this is always this happens often, a decoupling cap ends up over here, because you can easily do that and not break any rules, because it's just going to power and ground. So if I come over here and I go like this and I go like this, I easily say, because I have the zoom on, I can say, oh, that is definitely in the wrong place. I need that moved over. Okay, so that's a very nice way to navigate there. And what I'm going to do actually is I want to undo that, because I don't want to break any rules here. Let's see, undo. Okay. But what's even nicer here is, let's say I grab these again. Okay, I've got them all here, and I say, you know what? I actually want to know, when I get to the PCB, I want to actually create a component class for these components. So I can come over here, make this editor, and this is how you make the editor active without unselecting these. And I can go up to Design Classes, and I can say Component Class, right-click, Add Class. And what's nice, I can name this decoupling caps. And this little arrow right here is a really nice one. Whatever's selected in here, as soon as I click on this arrow, it's going to bring in anything that's selected, and it's going to bring it into there. And now I have a component class with these in there. And it was beautiful, because I did not have to write down all these numbers and do it all in the PCB. I could grab them from here and do it over there. Let's do that with nets. It's a little bit different with nets. I'm going to come over to this one, and I'm going to say wires only, and I'm going to select all of these wires. Okay, so I got that, and I say, you know what? I want to create a net class out of this. Now, to create a net class is a little bit different. You have to go up to Design, Net List, and create net class from selected nets. I wish they would just use that. If you did exactly what I did with the components, those three bars with the arrow does not light up. For some reason, Altium hasn't brought that in there yet. But I can add this net class and call it HA and HB nets. Okay, and I'll come back to those later when we look at something else. So I say okay, and now I've got a net class here. Very nice way to use cross selection to be able to look at two different designs. And by the way, hopefully everybody knows that if I could show you my other monitor during this webinar, I would just drag this. I'd take this tab and I would just drag it to my other monitor. Okay, so if I'm gonna merge all these, and I could just I could grab this and just drag it to another monitor. It'd be great. I'd have different monitors there. Let's go to cross probe mode now. So cross probe is a little bit different. It acts a little bit differently. If I go to tools and go to cross probe, or again, I could use this little icon, or I could make my own. In fact, I use Z, remember? So I'll just hit the Z key, and I can start cross probing between the two designs. I can do both parts, okay? I can do nets if I want to. Okay, I'm cross probing to different nets. And what's interesting about this is, if you notice, as I'm cross-probing, I am staying in the same editor. Okay, I'm staying in the schematic editor, even though I'm cross-probing over there. Now, one of the things I want to show, this is kind of an interesting example of something, is notice how I want to select C4 to cross-probe on. And if I select it over here, it's selecting that pad of C4. If I select it over here, it's selecting that pad of C4. I actually want to select the component. One of the things that Altium allows you to do for certain things, not everything, is if I'm in a 100 mil grid right now, and that's why I cannot select the component, all I can do is select the pins, I can hit the control key, and that will hopefully you can see this on the webinar, that will put me into 10 mil grid mode just as I'm holding down in fact, if you look down in the lower left-hand corner, you can see I'm in a 100 mil grid and if I hit the control key, I'm now in a 10 mil grid, and now I can select that easily, and now I've got the entire part, okay? So you can do that. Now that's, like I said, I am selecting these things and I'm staying in this, this editor. If I want to, let's say I want to take this resistor and I want to do something with it in the PCB editor, instead of clicking on it and then so I could click on it, come up here, make I have to hit escape. In fact, I'll do it. Make this active, then grab it and do whatever I want to it. But what's easier in cross-select mode or in cross-probe mode, I can come in here and instead I can hit the control key, click on it, and what it does is it automatically makes this the editor that I'm in. Okay, so not only goes to that part, but it makes that editor the active editor. So it's real nice to be able to do. I'm going to merge all here. If you've ever done this before and you don't know why it's doing this, if you go cross-probe, you go like this and it goes there for a second and then comes back, that's why it's doing that. It's coming back to this editor. So you just hit the control key and now you're into this editor. Okay. So that's cross probe and cross select mode. Okay. Yep, I'm behind. I thought I would be. I'm going to speed it up just a little bit. Sorry about that, but it has to be done. And again, you can always look at this again. So the thing I'm going to look at, so we're going to go to the PCB now. And the first thing I'm going to look at is the view configuration panel. It's such a popular panel. All you got to do is hit the L key and bring it on up. And if anybody has not, if you have not gone to Altium 18 or above, this is a dialog. The view configuration is a dialog. It's now a panel, which works much, much better because I can actually manipulate the layers while I'm looking at it. Okay, so it's very nice to be able to turn things on, turn things off if you want through this panel. Okay, I can do mechanical layers. In fact, let's turn on some of these. Let's turn on this mechanical layer here. So I've got the top signal, I've got this on, I've got this mechanical layer. I can turn all these off. So I can set this up. And what's nice about this is I can set up, if I have this all set up the way I like it, I can come here if I want, and I can make, I can call this Eric's layer set if I want. In fact, layer set 1, I can make as many of these as I want. So I can actually create that. And now if I go to some other, like for instance, all layers on, I can always come back to my Eric layer set 1. So you can set that up. So if you have certain layers that you want to have on or off at the time, you can set up all these different customized ones. Down here, never forget to go down here and look at this stuff because it's actually pretty interesting. Of course, we all use the connection line things. We can change colors and things like that. But they have a couple other things that you might want to know too. For instance, one of the things that's kind of nice, you can turn on, for instance, component reference point. If you ever want to know where the component reference point is on something, you can always turn that on, and you can see here, like for instance, on this connector, the component reference point is right there. Usually on like resistors and stuff, it's right in the middle of it. And this one is pin 1. This reference point is pin 1. This is very important to know if you're mechanical, or if you're have a mechanical person that gives you a coordinate for a connector and it's a critical placement, you both better know where that origin is. Okay, so this is one nice way of looking at it without having to go into the PCB library editor and go and look for it. But normally I would want to probably turn that off. Okay, so you can change the colors a little bit. If you notice, I have a couple of DRC errors we're going to deal with later, and I can change the color of that here as well. Okay, so I'd like to go more into this, but this is something you might want to just play with. The nicer area here, or one of the nice areas, is the view options up here. I can come up here and create different view options. I can actually turn off and on the grid if I want to here and change the color of the grid. But the nice thing here is I can do things like turn off the view of the polygon. Okay, so if I don't want to see all those polygons, I can turn them on or off here. I can put them in draft mode, which would be just the outside of the polygon. And I can actually turn that on, but make I can make it transparent. In fact, once you get it here, you can actually use your mouse wheel and make it less and more transparent the way you like it. It's really nice for polygons, but you can do that for pads, vias, arcs, anything you want. But for right now, I'm actually going to turn off the polygons for a while. And if you notice, if I'm showing something, or if I'm reviewing something, obviously I want to see the grid if I'm placing something, but if I don't want to see the grid, it's just annoying to me, I can always do this and turn it off, and then I can see that better. Okay, so we'll keep it on for now. And mask and dim settings, we'll get to this in a bit, but this is how you can set up your mask and dim settings. And then down here, there's some things that might interest you. For instance, if you want to see, right now, you can see that I can see the via span. I can turn that off if I want. You can see how the via span turned off, especially if you only have one via span. Why have it on there? I can turn off the via nets if I want. I can turn off pad nets, pad numbers. We'll talk about net color override in a minute. You can do repeated net names on tracks. If you want to do that, you can see how it repeats every once in a while. So it's kind of nice to see that. And then if you want to see your special strings, you can turn that on as well. Real quick, I'm going to go into a different design here, and I want to go into the 3D editor really quickly. If you've never used it before, it's really nice. So if I hit the 3 key in this design, I can come up, I am now in the 3D editor, and I can use my shift right mouse click to rotate this thing. I can use, I can hit the 0 to bring it back here. I can go VB to actually look at the back of the board, hit VB again to bring it back in there. But what I want to show you here is the view option changes when you're in 3D mode. For instance, you can come over here and say, you can go orthographic if you want, or perspective. You can turn 3D bodies off if you want, and that gives you a very nice picture of the actual fab instead of the assembly. And then what's really nice too is you can do stuff like this. You can change the transparency of the cores and the solder mask and stuff. I turn that all off, and then I can do stuff like go to by layer, and now I can actually look and see. I can navigate the design basically in a 3D view. So you can imagine how complicated this might look with many different layers, but it's real nice, and I can actually come in here and actually see how this is all set up and that kind of thing. So the 3D editor is really nice in here, works really well. And also I use it for instruction too, to actually show how, if in a, if you want to show how vias work and that kind of thing, or how an annular ring works and things like that, you can do that, and it works really well. So playing in the 3D editor is kind of cool, and you should do that when you get a chance if you haven't used it before. There's a lot of neat things you can do there. So let's go back to this design. I'm actually going to change the layers. I want to actually turn off the overlay. I really don't want to see it right now. And I think I will turn off the grid just so we can actually see a little bit better. So what I want to do is go to the PCB panel, and this is the big one. This is the PCB panel. Is something I wanted to show because for navigation, it is the panel to work with. Okay? So if I want to see stuff, so the PCB panel can be broken up into several different sections. We've got nets. We're going to look at nets, components, and whole size editor, just to give you an idea of how this works. Anytime you're in the PCB panel, or many other panels like this, Altium sets these up to where you have this apply, clear, zoom level, mask, select, zoom, and clear existing. So you can set all these up like this. And if you remember we created this HA and HB nets earlier, this class. So the way this is set up is you have the classes here, and when I pick a class, when I click on that, what it did is it selected, it zoomed, and it cleared anything that was already selected. Okay, and it used the mask setting. Okay, and now, of course I can come down here and change my mask setting. Okay, to make it a little, I can see things a little bit better over here. I can come over here and use the dim setting, which if I do that again, it basically gives me the color, but it also stands out like this. Or I could use normal and hit that, and now it just selects those things. If you really want to see things, mask is probably the best way to do it because you can really see it well. Okay. So when I pick something, when I pick a certain net class, then the nets that are in that net class show up down here. So now I can pick each one individually if I want to. And once I pick each one, then down here you get each primitive of that pad. So this goes on and on and on. So that's how the PCB panel is. Class up here, members of the class, and primitives within those members. Okay, if I want to change a color of one of these nets, this is a nice way to be able to navigate later if you want to. I'm going to Shift C to clear this. I could have hit the clear button, but let's say I want to change the color of this. I could double click, change the color here if I wanted to, okay? Or I can actually do it to multiples, like for HA2 down to HB19. I can hit the Shift key, select them all, right click, say change net color, change it, say yellow, say okay. And now if I click on these, I'm basically highlighting, what I'm doing is I'm highlighting these nets, okay? I have to click on them and it gives it that yellow color. Now you don't see it yet because Altium does something nice, because of course color is important in the PCB. You don't want to create red colors here because that's going to conflict with your red colors on your layer. So I can hit the F5 key, and the F5 key is actually, if you look down here, it's the F5 is the net color override. So I'm just hitting the F5 key. I can turn colors on, turn them off. Some people like to use colors, especially for like power nets and things like that. But it's nice to be able to, instead of coming over here and turning them off one at a time, so I could do that. I could turn them off one at a time here. But if I want to turn that color on or off, I can basically just hit the F5 key and do that, okay? And I'm not going to show it here, but you can actually assign net colors in the schematic and push those over to the PCB and be able to do it that way. It's really easy to do. Let's look at real quick. Let's go ahead and look at, oops, sorry. Let's come down here and look at components. So it's the same thing. If I want, remember I added this decoupling caps. So later on, let's say I added this and I can click on it, and sure enough, there they are, okay? Again, I don't have to, if I didn't put the zoom on, the zoom is nice because, especially for a big design, if I turn zoom off and I go to decoupling caps, yeah, you can see it here. But if you have very small things, what's nice when you put the zoom on, you'll know exactly that it's going to basically fill up the display, and now you know you're not missing anything. So that's kind of nice. Okay. And once I'm in there, I can actually, like I say, I can pick each one of these separately if I want to. Okay, and of course it gives me the component primitives down here. Last one on here, I'll look at the hole size editor. This can be kind of interesting sometimes. I'm going to clear this. If you want to see what holes you have in the board, in fact, I'm going to turn off my colors because I don't want to see that right now. But you can actually look to see what kind of holes you have in this board. Okay. Oh, I got to say something first. I got to go back to nets because I forgot something. This is the beauty of this. Okay. When I pick HA and HB nets, let's say I really care about the length or the signal delay on this. I can come down here, and each one of these nets, I can see what the signal length is. I can see what the routed length is. I can actually right click on here, go to columns, and if I want to, for instance, I can pick delay. Okay, delay is brand new for Altium 20. They're actually adding a delay section now instead of length, which is really, really good. The length thing is not all that great because you can have the speeds of your signals can be different, whether it's a microstrip or a strip line. So once your stack up is established, you can actually see delay here. Okay, so it's really nice to be able to see that. And then once you pick that, you can actually see all kinds of information here. So that's very important. So let's go back to the hole size editor. It's really nice to see these holes. You know what you can say, well, why do I have 3 of these? Well, I can click on those and it basically, oh, there they are. Okay, I understand that. I can come up here and say, okay, there's 2 of those. Let's see, I got these are vias. So let's see, oh, there's all my vias, okay? And what's really nice, I cannot figure out why I gotta figure out why that is. Honestly, I don't know why that keeps showing up. Anyway, but I can pick all my vias here. And what's really nice is, let's say I have these vias, I bring them up, I go to the properties panel, let's bring up the properties panel. You can see here, I've only selected vias, I've got 225 of them. And if I want to do something like add tenting to all of them, or if I even want to change the size, I could change all hole, if I want to change this hole size to a little bit smaller or something like that, I can do them all at the same time by navigating over here to those and doing that. Okay, so it's really nice to be able to do that. One of the other things, and it's let's see, so that is the PCB panel. There's lots to talk about there, but we just don't have the time to do it. Yeah, I'm really getting close here. So let me keep going here. I want to show you a couple other things. This live highlighting is really nice under Board Insight. See, under PCB, Board Insight Display, this live highlighting, I really like it. This is live highlighting only when the shift key is down. So if you want to see where something is, I can hit the shift key and I can actually hover over that and it'll show me exactly where that net's going. So if you're trying to find where things are going, it's really nice, and you don't want to actually go select it or anything. You can actually go like this and find the live highlighting. The other really nice feature is this, is you can come over here and I can hit the control key and then click on a net. And what it's going to do is it's going to show me where that net goes, and it actually goes between layers as well. So if I hit the control key and go here, it'll actually show, I just happened to pick the one that was acting up, control key here, you can actually see where these things are going. So it's a really nice way to be able to do that. I'm going to actually skip the PCB filter panel, but it's something you might want to check out sometime. The PCB filter panel, if you want to find things, you can do the builder here, where you can actually add conditions. If you say belongs to net, C clock, and belongs to net, say C clock, you can actually say or if you want here, and you say okay. And what it does is it brings up the actual I can't remember what's called, the query. This is the query language it has, and from there you can actually create a rule. You can do all kinds of stuff in here, but you can actually select that. But the one thing I really like in this editor, and it's great for navigation, is once you've done your design and you want to do a design rule check, once you do a design rule check, you can come up here, design rule check, and if I run this design rule check, yeah, I know. Let's go over here, turn on polygons. I want to actually re-pour all the polygons, so I'm going to say TGA. That's my shortcut for re-pouring polygons, and I'm going to come up here and go design rule check, run the design rule check, and you'll notice that a couple things come up here. First, the messages panel comes up. I'm going to close that. The design rule verification report comes up. I'm actually going to see that I have 4 violations. Okay, I've got 2 of these, 1 of those. I'm going to close that. But what I want to show you is this very powerful panel, and that is the PCB rules and violations panel. And what this does, especially for navigating to violations, is it will give you can actually set up these rules, set up which, I'm looking at all rules. I only have 4 violations. So what I've got is an unrouted net, clearance constraint, that kind of thing, a hole size constraint. I can come down here, I can click on this, okay? And depending on how much I magnify this, I can actually magnify it a little bit more if I want to. So if I click on this, it brings me right to where I need to be. I'm going to go to single layer mode, Shift S, to see where I'm at and say, oh, I get it. I've got a problem here. I can double click on it too, and it'll say what my violation is. Okay, and it'll actually give me, I can actually go to the rule. If I click on here, and I can actually change the rule if I wanted to, but I don't want to change that rule. I basically want to fix the problem, right? So I'm going to grab this part and I'm going to move it over just a little bit. And if you notice that, because I have in my settings under PCB General, because I have online DRC turned on, it automatically removed it from here. So really nice. So I have an unrouted net constraint. Let's see where that is. I'm going to double click on it. I can actually, if I still don't see it, I can actually jump to it. Okay, use the jump key, and I can actually highlight it. Okay, it'll highlight the unrouted net. I can say, okay, I get it. I see it. I'm going to move this over. Okay, there it is. It's disappeared. And now I've got one last thing, and it's a hole size constraint. I'm going to double click to that. I'm going to say, what is it? Oh, it's that right there. In fact, let's jump to it. I'll actually highlight it and say hole size constraint. I'll say, you know what? I get this. I don't want to change my rule, okay? But I know this is okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to waive this violation. It says Eric Gross, and I'm going to say checked. Okay, and now I've waived that violation and we're good to go. Now I have 0 violations. I show 1 violation, waive violation down here, 0 violations. that this PCB rules and violations panel is very, very handy to have. Okay, whew, I did it. I think that's all I have. Paul, I think you were going to bring up another polling question, and then Paul was going to give you a real quick spiel on some of the other things we do here at 9.Connects. Thanks a lot, everybody, for listening and hanging out with me. Appreciate it.
Very good. Just take a few more minutes here and then we'll wrap it up on the polling question. So thank you very much, and take a look at this. So yeah, so you did pretty good there, Eric. Glad to see that a lot of people found some interesting features and learned a lot today as well. And by the way, even though I've been using Altium since 2007, they're constantly adding great stuff to it. And as a result of that, even I don't always know about these little tricks. And so what a great refresher. I really appreciate you going through all that, Eric. So I'd like to spend a few moments here, talk about 9.Connects. If you have any questions, feel free to write those in. We've been trying to answer those as we've been going along. Let me switch the screen here so I can just show you a few slides. So you are here for a reason. And why are you here? Well, you know, with any tool, not just Altium Designer, but any tool out there, navigating is half the battle. In fact, I'd say the other half of the battle is just trying to get a file to load in, whether it's just file new or importing in a file. But once you've got the file in, navigating is half the battle. And for example, if any of you have ever used SolidWorks or Solid Edge and you need to look at a file in there, you know, you open it and you get the file started, but then how do you navigate it? How do you rotate? How do you look at the top view, and so on and so forth? Well, this is no different, right? In any tool, especially Altium Designer. One of the nice things about Altium, you probably have seen a little bit of a theme over here, is that in most of the editors, if you know how to do something, that propagates to pretty much all the other editors. So in Altium, though there are multiple editors, there is really 4 major editors, right? Your Schematic, your PCB, and your 2 library editors. And once you've learned how to zoom or to do something in one of them, it generally is applicable to the other. So navigating is really important. And the other reason why it's really important is that once you feel comfortable in navigating, you'll start feeling confident in editing. Let me talk a little bit about 9.Connects here, about training and services. So we do obviously provide services such as print circuit board design. We do a lot of work with libraries, but we also do a lot of training here as well. So we do boot camp, which by the way was written and is kept maintained by Eric, who gave the webinar here today. And also we do something called Spec Ops, which is kind of an advanced program that we have if you're looking to go one step beyond what you've learned in boot camp. But we also have a feature called Full Spectrum, and this is becoming very popular with a lot of our clients who really cannot do 2-3 day classes. So boot camp's 3 days, Spec Ops is 3 days, and in many cases they just want to get a refresher of boot camp, but at the same time they want to go a little bit more into Altium Designer, and that's what Full Spectrum is all about. So it's a combination of these two, and by the way, it is a 4-day class, and it's on boot camp topics, but also more advanced exercises. So even though some of the verbiage might look the same as to how they introduce things, the exercises in the back of the Full Spectrum are a little more advanced. And you also get to pick and choose certain Spec Op topics. So if you want to know more about subversion, or you want to know about database libraries, or you want to know about high speed and X signals or match length tuning, these are the kind of things that you can request. And we add that in as a part of the package here. So you get a good review of Altium Designer and some knowledge of key Altium added features. So if you want more information about this, check us out at 9.Connects.com. When you go onto the website, make sure you look under our trainings. Under the trainings, you'll be under the Altium trainings, and then from there you'll find the Spectrum overview. So with that, let me see if there's any questions, or we may be here on, well, we're already 2 minutes past the hour, and I don't want to hold you up any further. So if you do have any questions, feel free to write those in. We'll still continue to monitor those and try to respond to them. Other than that, thank you so much for your time today, and we look forward to seeing you at our next webinar.